Hello, every pony. This is Nightlife here, and it's time, finally, for some more Fallout Equestria Project Horizons, and I still cannot say that properly. So, without further ado, oh, it's by Somber, by the way. We shall finish Chapter 17 for I know, about time, right? I've been getting several requests, by several I mean two, for more Project Horizons, and one even managed to ask nicely. This goes out to you, person who asked nicely. Good job. You did a good job. Okay, I have my place right here on the screen, and I also have Google Docs is not being a pansy now. And it's late at night, so I need not blush when I read this, because if you don't remember, Bar Pony, aka whatever her flank was, took security, aka Blackjack, into stable 69 for some fun times. And in bad fun times, I mean a little roll in the hay. And by roll in the hay, you better know what that means, because I'm not explaining it to anyone. Let's go. We finally took a break. I felt good. No, screw that. I felt great. Truly and honestly great. For once, I didn't have any regrets about leaving my nice, safe, ugly life in stable 99. From my rear emanated a buttery goodness that spread through my entire body. Our limbs were tangled together in the middle of my bed. I still had a fluttery contraction twitching in my hindquarters. She was watching me with her amused pink eyes, reflecting the colors like stars. I feel like I was a virgin there for a bit. I said, getting my breath back. You mean you weren't? She asked with a teasing smile. I winced, and she gave a soft murr as her hoof stroked my cheek. I'm teasing. You were actually very sweet. Why is it that you make sweet sound like virgin? I asked as I knit my brows together in worry. Because virgins are sweet too, she said archly. That's what it says, folks. I sighed, closing my eyes with a deep breath. You're taking advantage of my afterglow. No fair. Fairness doesn't exist in the wasteland, she said as she licked my cheek, making me shiver. Another? I think I'll melt if you do. Then I'll just bottle you. Liquid security? Security cola. I'm not sweet enough for that. I beg to differ, she said as she nibbled my ear. You are very sweet. Okay, blushing now. Unfortunately, I also had some work to do. Why don't we take a break? You can go ask your boss when she plans to meet me. And then, and I carry on. And I can go make sure things are working out above. I gave I gave a little chuckle. You know, the longer I'm here, the more I like this place. She paused as if considering me, almost measuring me, and then grinned. Well, that's good. She pointed to that's the point of flank. Fun for everyone, she said as she stood and gave herself a shake. You go ahead. Save up some energy for round 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm gonna stop doing the porno voice now. I nearly danced down the hall of the stable, not caring who saw me or what they thought. Maybe it was because I was helping ponies because I wanted to. Ugh. Or maybe it was the fact that Miss Bar Pony could tickle my nethers like I'd never imagined. But I was feeling really good. I know, I I know I got all kinds of looks, but I didn't care. Didn't care. Didn't care. Did not care. Outside, I found Glory with her working her magic with the machinery, getting the frames together. Given all that she'd been through, she seemed to be throwing herself into her work. When she spotted me, she pressed her lips together and scowled. Oh look, she emerges. Okay, Glory, side Glory I could handle. Ridiculously loyal Glory I could deal with. But where did pissed off and snippy Glory come from? Are you alright? Of course I'm alright. I've just been working my tail off while you've been getting your labia lubed, she said as she grabbed a wrench and firmly tugged a nut. Oh, connotations. She spat the tool back into a toolbox beside the frame. I sure hope she was spectacular. She apparently cost a hoof and a half an hour. Hey, you don't have to talk about her like that, I said with a scowl. Her eyes started to tear up, but she scrubbed them away before I sighed and put a hoof on her shoulder. What's wrong with what we're doing? I thought you were okay with making these turds. I am, she said with a sigh. It's just, why couldn't you have asked us about this first? I don't like helping Caprice. I'm not thrilled about helping her either, but there are good ponies here that deserve our help. Why shouldn't we help them? Because she's a drug dealer who now has a monopoly on the addicts of the hoof. On the addicts of the hoof. Glory said sourly. I sighed. It's not like that, Glory. She can keep the price high end, and she can keep the price low too. Glory responded. I don't buy the argument that all those scavengers in the ruins got their drugs from these outside suppliers. I don't believe she'd undercut her profits through ethics. They're lingering here, Blackjack, and I know Scalpel is trying to treat more addicts, but I think she'd be happy with even one additional patient. I have my doubts too, but our pony seemed to know what was going on. Perhaps she could let me know if Gloria was right, or convince her that this was okay. I just felt creepiness itching along my spine. I'm sorry I sprang this on you. Is there anything I can do to help? She sighed, looking at me as she seemed to shuffle through her list of things she needed. Targeting talismans. Without them, these are just weapons display stands. She looked out over the ruins of Frankfurt. There's a Rebronco retailer somewhere south of here. It might have working talismans. I checked my pickbook, and sure enough, a little navigation icon popped up along with the note. Objective: recover targeting talismans. Underneath it was another. Objective: deliver Flank's mail. I blinked and started. What? I completely forgot about that one. Honestly, so have I. I frowned and looked at the note. Can I just give the mail to some pony and let them hand it out? Of course, it didn't answer. Then there were a dozen arrows on my map around the town. Most of them were in Flank itself, but not all of them. Wondering how new it, wondering how it knew the locations was driving me crazy. Okay, well it looks like I've got 2 new reasons to go out now. Want to come when I do? Want to come with me when I do? I asked, and her mood brightened before my eyes. I suppose I have to. Do you even know what a targeting talisman looks like? She said with a small smile. Jan Central. Da 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 da. She said with a small smile, returning to the glory I knew. It's a talisman with a target on it? I offered. She laughed. Okay, come get me when you're ready to go. Victory! I wandered around, looking for the ponies the letters were addressed to. One to the butcher in the trough, another to the robot masked ponies and mixers, who apparently never left their armored booth and required me to feed them through a slot. I wondered how they got food in there. I went to the bathroom. Okay, not wondering anymore. Two were to scalpel from former patients. One took a price. I'd deliver it when I finally met her. One was to Octavia. What? I was delivering mail to a dead ponies now? At least I knew where her room was, and once the letter was inside, my pitbook dutifully informed me that this letter was officially delivered. I I looked at the yellow paper envelope nestled between the bones on the bed. It was 200 years old. It really, it really wouldn't, it really wasn't wrong to read, right? The old pale buck chuckled softly in my ear. Tisk, tisk. Tampering with mail. That's a serious offense. I ignored the amused hallucination as I tore open the envelope. I wasn't prying. I was reading it to Octavia, or rather her bones. Okay, getting away from creepy thoughts now. Dearest Octavia, I'm so glad to hear that you've found some place to rest your hooves. I'm very sorry Piggy Pie was so upset about your charity concert. I tried to talk to her about it, but she treats it like a personal snub. She's so odd these days. I can't tell what's the matter with her, but she's changed. I suppose we all have, to some extent. But some days it's like I don't even know her anymore. Regardless, I'm sure that with time she'll come around. She still finally remembers the Pony Pokey your quartet, yes, it played for her all those years ago. It's to the Pony Pokey needs to read something about. That's what I'm talking about. Come out! Psycho Shy. Oops, spoiler alert. Spoiler alert. I don't know why y'all like listening to me mumble. Oh well. Hmm. However, I was not simply writing to offer my sympathies. I wanted to follow up with I wanted to follow up on you after your procedure. Are you noticing any ill effects or differences? I recall how unpleasant the experience was for you, and I don't want you to feel abandoned. I glanced at the terminal. Considering her recorded message to Pwn 3, it was clear that she had been. She'd never gotten this letter. She died alone with her instrument. I hope that sometime in the future we can get together. I rarely have the time to get away from Canterlot, but I'd like to speak with you more in person. Oh, and there's a certain man named Glass who may poke about asking what happened. I hope you can keep everything in the strictest confidences. She's such a nosy little thing. Sincerely, Rarity. That made me blink. The Ministry Mayor of Image checking up on Octavia? Did she have a career resurrection spell or something? That would be awesome. From the taped up cabinet came a soft thunk, making me jump to my hooves. I frowned, looking at the tape on the rusty doors. Finally, carefully I pulled the tape away and opened the doors. Everything was yay. Exactly as I had left. No wait. The pin that held the bow had fallen out of the back of the cabinet. I honestly had no idea how to play an instrument. Music was something other ponies did, and I enjoyed. The only magic my horn could muster was used to kill things. It wasn't my place as security to try and make something beautiful. I looked at the black hairs in the bow, and then at the strings. I sighed softly. This was stupid. I should be doing things, helping, not staring at a musical instrument I had no hope of playing. Still, I hope I don't break it or something. I slowly levitated out the surprisingly heavy instrument and set it on its peg. I looked at the pictures taped inside the doors and carefully stood on my rear hooves. I rested my left forehoof on the strings at the top, right forehoof pinching the bow behind my right fetlock. I pressed the black bowstring to the wires and dragged it slowly across. The slow, deep note filled the dirty little apartment like with a single, mournful tone. Carefully I reversed the motion and played another note, and another. I couldn't call the sounds of me sawing back and forth music, but I wanted to continue. Slowly, the instrument seemed to say. Slowly. No need to rush. I carefully ran the bow across other strings, my ears picking out the different tones as they rose and fell with each of the 4 strings. I had no idea what I was playing, if I was playing anything, if I was playing at all. I simply couldn't stop. Not right now, as I dragged the bow back and forth. This was noise. Not specific notes or music, but even then, it was beautiful noise. It took the sight of P-21 watching me with his wide-eyed stare before I stopped, flushing. Ah, oh, sorry. I got distracted. Blackjack, you can play? He demanded in shock. I can't. I didn't. I didn't. I blushed as I looked at the pictures inside the carpet. The cabinet. Pictures inside the carpet! Quick, get 'em! Inside the cabinet. I was just copying her. He looked incredulous as he stared at me. Well, you fooled me. I mean, I couldn't say what you were playing exactly, but it sounded good. I extended the bow to him. Why don't you try? He looked skeptical, but copied my stance. He held the instrument awkwardly and dragged the bow across the strings with an anemic little noise that made me wince. Yeah, no wonder he had been staring. If I sounded like that playing, I'd stare too, wondering, wondering if I should put a bullet in both in me or him. That was nice, I said, forcing a grin and letting out a mental sigh. Glad he'd finished. If you say so. Still, I'm impressed you got it in tune and everything, he said as he carefully put it back in the cabinet. Glory told me you were going to look for targeting talismans. When I nodded, he continued. I wanted to go with you and see if I can't pick up some landmines from Deus's camp. Are you sure that's safe? I'm pretty sure Rampage didn't kill all the ponies he sent into flank. Maybe, but I know he kept a lot of things locked up, and I just don't have the mines to really make this place secure. I need a few crates of the things, he said, glancing at the window. Besides, I think folks here might be glad for the break. I think we're freaking them out a little. What do you mean? I frowned, worried. We haven't done anything. Haven't done anything. He arched a brow. You apparently ran in here dripping bloody foam. You blew up a factory. That was followed by blowing up the number 2 Reaper in the entire hoof. And today we're fortifying the place. It probably looks to them like we're taking over. That's ridiculous, I snorted. 4 ponies couldn't take over a town. Yeah, 1 pony could do it. He didn't laugh. Blackjack, one of us could if she wanted to. Have you seen Rampage today? She's hauling around rocks with the strength of 10 ponies. Heck, with the way things are now, Gloria could if she could fly. And with you in the mix, Blackjack, I'm thinking leaving sooner is better than later. I sighed with a scowl. But what was the point of saving this place if some pony else came along and just took it over? I want to thank Secure. When I'm sure that everything will be okay, then we can go. Maybe even tomorrow if we're lucky. Yard Central. Or the day after that. What's the rush? If that's the plan, he said with a sigh. Still, if we're going out, we should leave soon. I'd rather explore the ruins with daylight rather than at night. Yeah, and I have mail to deliver out there, I said as I lifted my remaining letters. He looked a little concerned. You could probably leave them with Caprice and let her handle them. Tell that to this thing, I snorted, waving my pit buck at him. He just smiled, rolled his eyes, and shaking his head as he stepped out. Rolling his eyes and shaking his head as he stepped out. I sighed and returned to the open cabinet, looking at the picture of the gray pony with such poise and confidence. How sad for her to end in this lonely room. I reached out and plucked each string with a hoof, smiling at the clear tones before closing the doors. With a shot, Toros's rifle tore the guts out of the sentry robot mindlessly patrolling around Rocco's retail store. Sighting with the scope was immensely more effective than using the lighter assault carbine. The heavy hunting rounds punched through their armor soundly. It was a bit more challenging than just running and shooting, but infinitely safer. I could just run in and stomp them all into scrap metal. Rampage said in a bored tone as she drew a picture of a filly in the mud with her hoof claws. And he stomped the talismans with them, Gloria pointed out. That's why I'm not zapping them either. Well, and because her AER wasn't working yet, and I had the longest range weapon. And I fired off the last shot. My aim was just a little bit off, and the head of the robot exploded in a spray of shrapnel. Shrapnel. Ah, horse apples. I muttered, glancing at the small gray Pegasus. Sorry about that. Well, we might find more inside. Remember, there's no smashing the heads if you can help it. Talismans are usually pretty brittle, she reminded us, unless they're made out of diamonds, but still. She trotted ahead to examine the robotic maintenance remains. She still isn't flying? P-21 asked me softly. I shook my head, wondering about that. I don't know why either. Had removing her key mark somehow damaged her ability to fly? Was it psychological? Or maybe something else? I'm not a smart pony. I don't even know how Pegasi fly, period. Magic! Rampage taunted as she trotted past us toward the store. Ah, of course. P-21 muttered with a smile, rolling his eyes and limping after her while I picked up my spent casings before catching up. I washed his leg with a sigh. Scalpel could have fixed it after a day or two, but the injury had set. It would take a fully operational health restoration matrix to repair it. Basically, a medical mega spell. He would still have to wear that damn leg brace. I silently wished the wasteland could be a little more fair for once. Bust my leg and let him walk. But the wasteland didn't work like that. He got to limp, and I got to guilt. Got to guilt? I didn't know guilt was a verb. What are you going to do tomorrow? I'm just going to go guilt for a while. Don't kill yourself. I loaded Cupcake's revolver and carefully moved into the Robronco's retail store. Brown tiles, cracked and water-stained, punched under hoof as I moved. Row after row of rusting models stood at attention on their display pedestals. I took 3 steps before a buzz filled the room and a few lights flickered to life. Welcome, visitors, to the Frankfurt Robronco Outlet Center. The speakers crackled, and wispy music began to play as we moved through the store. There were red bars on my EFS. Clearly not all these robots were just on display. As we walked, occasionally an automatic message would spout off as we moved through the display floor. Here at Bronco, quality is key, is our motto, and the motto is of our founder, Mr. Horse. Mr. Horse? Mr. Horse. At least it's not Mr. Ed. Every Bronco unit comes installed with a spark generator capable of months of sustained operation. And with your own handy recharging station, your Bronco robot can operate indefinitely. It's not just a purchase for you, but for your grandfoals too. Talk to our automated sales rep today. You have to admit, machines working 2 centuries without supervision is pretty impressive, Gloria said quietly as she looked at the sprite bots floating around the store, playing the bland music. Why are you whispering? Rampage asked. They're playing music, so I'm pretty sure if something could hear us, it doesn't really care. As she turned her attention to the store around us, I noticed P-21 was looking at her, his eyes roaming over her more closely than I'd ever seen him regard a mare. Hey, Rampage. She looked over her shoulder at him. Those stripes. Wait. Hey, Rampage. She looked over her shoulder at him, arching a brow. Those stripes. She just smiled, like he was a tasty menthol. Her pink eyes locking with his. Yes? She asked in a tone that did not invite further questioning. Well, he began, then swallowed. Never mind. I really wondered if he dared trot through this minefield. Why do you look like a red zebra? She blinked, then laughed. Oh, is that all? Wow. I thought you were going to ask me something personal. Something, you know, personal. She smiled warningly at him as she approached. Well, the reason is pretty simple. Yes? He asked as she walked towards him languidly. She grinned and stretched her face towards his, making him lean back nervously as she replied. It's because I want to. Then she turned and continued pacing through the store. He gave a smoldering glare at her and then glanced at me, daring me to comment. I just smiled as I looked at some of the interesting robots. Ooh, what an interesting robot rock. Robo-Rock. It throws itself. I passed by the standard Protector-Pony Sentry model and two Spattery Mr. Handy and Mr. Gutsy models. Levitation talismans long ago given out. I noticed a larger metallic pony balanced on two wheels between its hooves. A flat screen started out where a face would normally go. The PDQ 88P Secura Pony is our newest upgrade for home and municipal security. With its automated repair and restoration upgrades, the system will be able to continue performing indefinitely against all threats. There was a momentary pause, and then the voice said, softly and quickly, automated repair and restoration options are not yet available at this time. Please contact Roboco customer service representatives for further details. In the corner hulked a massive four-wheeled robot that looked more like an enormous crab than a pony. 4 heavy tires supported each of its splayed legs, and its vaguely equine head was nestled between armored shoulders. A minigun poked from one shoulder, and a missile launcher poked from the other. The SP Workhorse series of Sentry ponies combines maximum firepower with a reinforced and magically shielded chassis capable of withstanding shock spells. When in place, you know the Workhorse is going to be keeping you nice and safe. I looked at the looming mechanical monster, scratching my mane absent-mindedly as the speaker added softly, Roboco is not liable for collateral damage, injury, or death 30 days after placement. Please contact a Roboco customer service representative for further details. If you die, it ain't our fault. I didn't know Roboco was in the business of supplying tanks, Gloria said solemnly. Tanks? Rampage looked at the machine and snorted. That's not a tank. A US, that's a tank. Then she stopped and scowled, but I couldn't tell it what. A what? Roboco Ultra Sentinel. And if you find one, you'll know. Then you'll be dead, Rampage said as she focused and suddenly struck out with a hoof. The impact left an inch-deep impression in its armor. P-21 looked at the indentation and then asked with a smirk, Then how do you know about them and yet you still live? But for some reason, the question seemed to piss her off. 'Cause I'm really tough to kill, she replied with her own scowl. I rolled my eyes, keeping the revolver floating beside me. The door to the back was marked Maintenance Garage, authorized Roboco employees only. From the red bars, it was fairly clear that whatever was in there was unfriendly. I guardedly pushed my way through into a mess. What? Okay. Neat stacks of robot parts had tumbled down and lay rusting in iron-reeking pools. An unwholesome rainbow hue spread across the racks of spoiled electronics and scrap metal pipes. A broken pipe near the ceiling sprinkled foul water into the mechanic's pits. Despite the corrosion on every surface, however, the beam turrets near the roof slowly rotated this way and that, searching for intruders. I heard the odd hum of a levitation talisman somewhere on the second floor. Please wait while we disintegrate your zebra ass. Warning! Warning! You are not authorized to be here. Warning! Surrender immediately. Unfortunately, neither robots nor turrets seemed to recognize surrender. and Rampage certainly wasn't in the mood as the Protected Pony robots shambled uh, for shambled forward like metal zombies, and the turrets began to spray beams of crimson death at her. Her metal armor blackened at its as it deflected some of the energy, and she launched herself again across the room to rip the robots to pieces. Mind the heads, yipe! Glory called out as the turrets detected us, and let out a rapid-fire stream of magic energy that scorched holes in my barding and hide. I narrowed my eyes as I brought up Sats, putting 4 heavy revolver rounds into the casing. Glory finished it off with 2 pink bolts of disintegrating magic. Unfortunately, our fire seemed to be waking up more of the machines. They stepped out of their waterlogged recharge stations, dripping rust. In fact, I wasn't sure how much of a threat they were until their unrusted heads started to fire. I put the last 2 rounds into the chest of the shambling metal pony. Then, with an electric shock, the pony exploded. Hot shrapnel showered down. Hot shrap. Hot sharp metal showered down over me as a jolt shocked my hooves. Careful! They're really unstable. They're not the only thing, Glory shouted. Rampage laughed like a maniac as she bucked the sparking remains into a turret. A door slid open, and out rolled a workhorse sentry. Rampage, big one, sick it! I shouted as I dumped the shell casing into the water, and as I dumped the shell casings into the water and loaded 6 more of the large caliber pistol bullets. The robot's left shoulder popped open and sent a missile through the air, blasting the striped pony and sending her flying into a heap of robotic scrap. I rolled slowly around, bringing that Gatling gun to bear. No, it rolled slowly around, bringing the Gatling gun to bear. Never mind, scatter! I shouted as I ran across the loading bay, away from P-21 and Glory. Cupcake's gun barked in a rather pathetic fashion, even with Sats guiding the shots to the eerie whine of the machine guns strafing across after me. The sensation of being hit by a minigun was entirely different from anything I've felt before. It was as if I was being slipped underneath the sewing machine without thread. From ass to rib, a line of small, deadly rounds tried to perforate anywhere not covered by armor, and managed to punch through a few places regardless. I collapsed into the mucky water, falling behind an overturned desk. "Stay down," P-21 shouted, drawing a shock grenade as the workhorse sentry rolled through the water. He tossed it right in front of the robot, and it detonated with an oddly anticlimactic beep and crackle. The robot, however, jerked spasmodically as its spell matrix were assaulted. It didn't stop, though. Suddenly, the pile of scrap was tossed aside as Rampage rose with a hysterical laugh. This is why I love Rampage. The left side of her face had melted to the bone, yet I could see the flesh crawling back into place. Her lips dripped foam from Stampede, and, laughing madly, she charged through the muck towards the robot. It turned its minigun on her, and I watched in horror as the streams of rounds ripped face from flesh, and flesh from bone. Yet she didn't fall. She ran against the stream of fire even as it tore into her chest, and as if it was just a light shower of rain. Churned organs fell into the water as she closed the distance. Suddenly the gun clicked, and its ammo expanded. Rampage lacked face, throat, and apparently lungs. None of that stopped her from launching herself through the air and slamming into the robot with such force one of its front legs was torn from its socket. Her head turned and gripped the handle of one of the blades she carried, pulling out something resembling a cross between a chainsaw and a knife. A Ripper! Her bloody jaws clenched, and the weapon began to whir. Hooves locked on. The Reaper began to tear into the body with the sparking saw blade. The robot responded by simply collapsing against Rampage. I heard bones shatter as even her strength wasn't enough to stop its incredible mass. Or was it? Slowly, she rose on broken limbs and tore her way deeper into the machine with savage sweeps of her head. A panel finally gave way, and with an electric shock, it exploded and went silent. Rampage stood there, shaking. A strange pink light seemed to stitch her slowly together as we watched. Gloria approached with a restoration potion in her mouth, but Rampage just looked her in the eye and shook her head firmly. Glory brought the potion to me instead. The strange pink glow faded. Her flesh restored. Suddenly she hunched over and puked a deluge of bloody minigun rounds over and over. As the magic potion restored my flesh, she screamed and began to claw at herself, tearing open gruesome knots that bulged in her skin. As each tore open, the blood and more minigun rounds tumbled into the water. With a scream of rage, she went through the shop like an earthquake, ripping and tearing at everything around her in blind fury. We simply retreated upstairs, unsure if she could recognize friend from foe. Finally, she collapsed, shaking as she hugged her head and wept. Slowly, I approached her. Rampage, are you okay? It was right at the top of my list of stupid questions I shouldn't ask. Damn straight. She stared right at me with her wet pink eyes and spat a bullet in my face. What do you think? Without another word, she turned and walked back out front. I returned to the others upstairs. What did that? Stampede? Gloria opened her and closed her mouth in shock. Nothing could do that. Nothing. Did you see that trauma? She was missing her face, multiple compound fractures in her limbs and ribs, and she still stood. Right. I looked away at Rampage, the way Rampage had gone, and looked at Glory. Right. You find your talismans. I looked at P-21, and you see if you can find anything else valuable. I'm going to make sure she's stable. Clearly, they didn't envy my job. I made my way out front of the retail store and was met at the side of Rampage picking her nose with a hoof claw. I balked for a moment as she snorted, and threw 3 bloody rounds from her and blew 3 bloody rounds from her sinuses. This is a real bad time, Blackjack. What are you? I asked as I walked to her. Good question, she muttered. I stepped in front of her. I need to know. How did you just do that? Piss off, Blackjack. I don't owe you or anybody else answers. I sighed. Rampage, I want to help you if I can. You want to help? She began to laugh, sitting down hard. Well, of course you do. That's what you do after all. She sighed. She grinned at me, and I suddenly appreciate how shiny recently regenerated teeth were. So why don't you go ahead and tell me? What am I? Don't fuck around with... I began, but she rose and thrusted her face into mine. Wow. So many connotations. What the fuck am I? She screamed in my face, and it took everything I had not to shoot her with the max magic bullet in reflex. How the fuck do I do what I do? How did I just do that? How do I know what an Ultra Sentinel is? I've never even seen one before. Why is it I can speak zebra? How come I can drink radioactive waste till I'm shitting rainbows and still not fucking die? That reminds me of something that I'm gonna eat pixie dust and shit rainbows. Why do I come back again and again and again? She gripped my shoulders with her hooves, claws digging in as she screamed. What the fuck am I, Blackjack? Rampage! I shouted through gritted teeth as her hoof claws shoved in deeper and deeper. Who? What? Why can't I fucking die? Why? She yelled hysterically. Okay. There was not okay and there was an entire world of fucked upness that transcended all boundaries of normalcy. I visited there for a couple of days while traveling with Glory. Rampage apparently lived there full time. Unfortunately, Rampage was also about to rip my forelegs off. I hit Sats and toggled 4 magic shots at both of her knees. My horn flashed over and over again, and the magic bullets tore through flesh and bone. With 2 small explosions, her forehoofs came off and they went away from each other. She hissed in pain as I panted, drawing the pump-action shotgun. I doubted it would actually do anything, but I wasn't going to fuck around. Those claws hurt. Before my eyes, pink light resumed. The pink light returned, and she shook as bones extended from the stumps, removing the claws, stumps. Flesh and muscle wrapped around it, and finally skin and hoof materialized. For a moment, I was afraid she was going to charge me, but instead she just took a deep breath and walked over to her own dismembered legs, removing the claws and tossing her limbs aside. "You don't know who or what you are?" I asked softly. She looked pissed, but finally slumped as she said softly, "My earliest memory was a while ago. Some ghouls found me in Miramare, in the Miramare crater, with half a tank lodged in my skull. They must have thought I was a ghoul like them because they pulled me out. Surprise, surprise, when I had a pulse. I was completely clueless. They used me. They sold me some pieces of shit. They sold me some pieces of shit. They sold me to some pieces of shit that eventually founded Paradise. After a few years, I was sick of getting fucked and broke free. I drifted a little bit and found Scalpel when she was still a wandering medic with old Bonesaw. Tired tried to figure me out. Scalpel eventually found a heap of healing potions, rigged the auto dock, and put down roots in flank. Bonesaw settled down in Megamart. Me, I ended up in Chapel when it was just me and a dumb cult wanting to fix up that stupid church of his. You knew Priest? Something about my question made her smirk. Knew him? I fucked him. That sentence slapped through me, before she added with a chuckle. Or I wanted to anyway. We hung out together around and found more kids. Usually the young of ponies making the walk. Pilgrims. Yeah, that's what he called them. Young colts and fillies, though. They're tougher. Haven't been worn down as bad. They stuck around rather than following their parents, and we formed the Crusaders together. She sighed softly. I always wished I could be one of them. I remembered that what Scoodle had mentioned so many days back. Our lost, I murmured, getting a sharp look. That's your name. It was a name Scalpel made up for me. Before I was the fuckmare. She said sharply, then sighed as I rolled her eyes. Our lost. She shook her head. Eventually I got sick of it. I wasn't like him. It hurt to be around him. So I left. Wandered about. Crossed paths with a reaper named Rampage. She swore she could kill me 20 times, 20 different ways. I was only looking for one. Turns out she was a lot squishier than me. Big Daddy Reaper let me join. Took her name and her armor. I was tired of our loss. Too many regrets. And then Big Daddy sent you to me, I said in conclusion. She gave a mirthless smile and shrug. I want to fucking die, Blackjack. You've been out in the wasteland for a couple of weeks. I've been staring it in the face for years, and it's not getting better. The hoof is a meat grinder. Ponies keep coming and they keep dying. It's getting worse. The poison spreads a little more every day, every day. And one day, if I don't die, I think I'm going to be the last thing in the stinking corpse of Equestria. So just go to the core. They'll vaporize you instantly, and our eyes met. Her face was a mask of horror. You've been there, haven't you? I'm not going to talk about it, she whispered softly. But like that, she was on top of me. No talking about it. and looking into her eyes, I knew she'd kill me right now rather than say another word. Okay, okay, I grunted in pain. She was heavy in all that armor. Slowly, she climbed off me. I just wished there was something I could do. Join the club. But that's the great thing about the wasteland. It will throw shit at you time and time again, letting you stare at it in frustration like a glass of nice cool water on the other side of some bars while you're dying of thirst. She said as she looked at me, and you want to know what the really fucked up part is? You'll go crazy and bash your skull to paste before you die of thirst. Oh shit. God dang, it's 45 minutes in already. I'm only halfway done. I can do this. I can do this. I can do this. Fuck. I'm gonna get some water. And we're back. Okay, let me get this. Inside, I found P-21 in the upstairs office as Gloria examined the glyph-marked talismans glowing calmly on their shelves in the storeroom. He was working on a terminal, scowling at the screen as he struggled with password after password. He looked up at me. I can't believe I'm asking this, but how is she? Messed up, so she's in perfect company, I replied in a wan smile. With a wan smile. I'm in a wan smile. It's weird. I'm so used to being the nexus of messed upness in the world. I don't even know how to handle other ponies' pain. How did Glory and I help you? He asked with a smile. Lots of hugs and not killing me. I added with a chuckle. Yeah, that last bit helps a lot, she said, and then closed out the screen again. Ugh. Some pony was a paranoid bastard. He looked at me with a sigh. This is taking forever. All I can say is, it better be worth it, or I'm going to invent time travel just to kick her ass. I thought back to the memory orb of the princesses. I'd try and do better if I had such a spell. Anyway, present from the Hornhead Club, he said as he reached into his pouch and pulled out another memory orb. Found it hidden in a drawer. Not sure if he'd want it, he added. Your track record with orbs is a little spotty. Yeah, but I swept it up in my magic and looked at him. Like you said, I might as well since I'll be waiting either way. Sure, we have to do the actual looting while you take a stroll through some other pony's memories. From the nervous look in his eyes, I couldn't tell he wasn't serious. He clearly remembered the last time I went into an orb and didn't come out of it. I remember. It's a dirty orb, but somebody's gonna. It's a dirty job, but somebody's gonna do it. I chuckled and raised the orb in a salute before touching it to my horn, hoping it didn't come out of this dead, mutilated, or crying. The world whirred away. Whoosh. Lame sound effects. Ahoy! I was standing in a factory of some sort. A laboratory? Lots of ponies standing around the table, looking serious and frowning at a heap of scrap metal. Lots of nervous ponies in lab coats. I was in a mare, no wings, but she had a horn. Somehow things were just clearer when I was in a unicorn mare. 3 ministry mares for a test demonstration? Is horse mad? A mustard-colored mare whispered it softly in my ear. Then I noticed the 3 sets of cutie marks directly in front of my host. 3 apples, a group of white stars around a large purple one, and a cloud and a thunderbolt. Million-bit question as to who those are. Rainbow Dash gave a very vocal yawn. Boring. When is this thing supposed to start? Shh, Applejack shushed. He may be a cocky jackass, but Mr. Horse knows robots like no other. Oh, I get it. It's like Mr. House. Spoiler alert, snicked Dumbledore. I wish he'd start, Twilight Sparkle said with her own impatient little huff. Tarnation, girl. You in that much of a hurry to get back to the launch reception? Twilight Sparkle bowed her head a little. Actually, I had some other things to take care of, since I'm in Hoofington anyway. You actually want to do things here? Rainbow Dash asked with a frown. If Shadowboat Tower weren't here, I'd never come. Hoofington is the ugliest city I've ever seen. A number of bucks and a mares looked at her with a poorly concealed frowns, and as she added, "Well, it is." Still, it's turning out Discovery's rather weak. If things weren't so busy in Canterlot, I'd relocate some projects here. It's nice to be able to coordinate things with the MOP or Mom. With the MOP or Mom, Twilight Sparkle said brightly. Speaking of morale, have you talked to Pinkie Pie lately? Pinkie Pie Twilight? Pinkie Pie Twilight, yes? Let me try that again. Speaking of morale, have you talked to Pinkie Pie Twilight? Like, recently? No. Not for almost a month. With everything so busy. Is she alright? Rainbow Dash just looked hesitant as she rubbed her mane. She's being way more random than usual. I haven't seen her like this since... Fillies and Gentlecolts, thank you for coming. Fillies and Gentlecolts, thank you for coming. A pale gold earth pony buck said as he trotted up to the table with a cloth-covered round drum on his back. He had the strangest little pencil-thin mustache and a sparse, narrow brown mane. It is Mr. House. His kitty mark, perhaps appropriately enough, was 3 gears. He bucked his hips and caught the round cylinder neatly on his head, and then bounced it off to hold on his hooves before the crowd. What I have inside this canister is going to revolutionize manufacturing as we know it. Even Rainbow Dash looked interested now, as he set the container beside the pile of scrap metal. I give you the Mega Sprites. As he whisked the cloth away, to reveal a glass full of ball bearings. That's it? Twilight asked in confusion. The normal ones are annoying enough. Now we're making our own out of metal? Rainbow Dash complained. I beg you to be patient, he said with a broad grin, his eyes sweeping the ground and silencing the murmuring. Think of all steps involved in manufacturing. Ore must be extracted, refined, and shipped. Parts must be fabricated, then assembled. If only there was a way to shape raw material directly into the end product. He stroked the glass jar lovingly. Oh my. Today there is. With a simple application of a magic field, he flipped a switch at the base of the jar, and suddenly every ball bearing's eyes lit up. 2 tiny wings appeared on each, and then the little metal orbs fluttered out of the jar and into the air. Well, at least they're not as cute. Can't see Fluttershy adopted them. Applejack muttered. Mr. Horse continued with his broad, confident smile. Any design can be programmed into the Mega Sprites, and they will proceed to seek out the raw material, ingest, process, and produce the design. Watch. I had a frog in my throat. Sorry. Sorry. A frog in my throat. Frodo Baggins. And he pushed another button on the base. The Mecha Sprites began to bob in the air with the strangest churring noise, and they suddenly descended on the scrap metal and began to take little bites out of the twisted lengths. They chewed up the bits of metal and spat out wads of shiny liquid metal on the table, forming the globs into solid steel. They smoothed the metal with licks of their tongues, and in a minute, an automatic pistol lay on the table. Voila! From scrap to weapon in 10 seconds flat. It's a good thing to get Rainbow there. Mr. Horse clearly had a strange sense of time, but I saw his point. What? Wait. Were there more Mecha Sprites? As I watched, one opened its mouth and belched out another Mecha Sprite that was rust red. As you can see, the Mecha Sprites will use surplus materials to manufacture more more production units. They can even specialize to improve efficiency. Twilight Sparkle raised a hoof. Not to be an alarmist, but what's to stop them from eating, say, Hoofington? Excellent question, Miss Sparkle. He said, his grin clearly said he'd hoped some pony would ask that. Get them outside the magical field, and he caught one in his mouth and pulled it from the others. Its eyes went wide, and the wings wrapped around it, and it retracted back into a round ball. My host started to fidget with something in her bag. Are they supposed to be doing that? Rainbow Dash asked as he pointed to the table. The scrap metal was all gone. Now the veritable swarm of mecha sprites devoured the metal table and began to gnaw on the metal bleachers the audience sat upon. Mr. Horse's smile turned a touch more nervous. Ah, eager little things, aren't they? He stepped up to the case and flicked the switch off. The mega sprites, however, continued to eat and multiply. In greater and greater abundance. Wait, what? This isn't possible. He gasped as he stared at the device. Well, they're doing a whole lot of eating for impossible. Applejack cried out. Look out, every pony! She yelled as one of the beams holding the roof groaned and bent. Mr. Hoof gave a frustrated sigh and nodded to the ponies watching on nervously. They immediately tossed a dozen of apple grenades into the swarm. Bright blue bands flashed brightly, and as the shock grenades scrambled the magic animating the machines. As one, they folded their wings and clattered to the concrete floor. The yellow buck ran his hoof through his mane. Well, that was an unforeseen glitch that we haven't encountered before, but certainly you can see the potential. I sure can. Potential for disaster, Rainbow Dash scoffed. I don't think the MOA would need your mech sprites, Mr. Horse. Ain't nothing good that can come from something based on those critters. Applejack agreed as the ponies started filing out. Come on, Twilight. I'm sorry, but it seemed like the magical field was what they were getting power from. Like, they would just run off the ambient power because they were really small. They wouldn't take much power. So the magical field must have been their power source. Turn it off, and they turn off. So when the field went down, why didn't they go back up? That's just my ramblings. I'm sorry. The purple mare approached Mr. Horse with a sympathetic smile. I'm sorry, Mr. Horse. It really did have amazing potential. They shouldn't have done that, he replied firmly. Well, something caused them to. I'm sorry. If you like, perhaps we can take a second look at them. Find out where they went wrong. He looked at her sharply for a moment, but then relaxed. Thank you, but that won't be necessary. I suspect this is an internal matter. Twilight looked concerned, but finally just shrugged. My host rose and left with the other ponies, filing out after the three Ministry mares. Can you believe that? Mecha sprites? I thought this guy was supposed to be some sort of mechanical genius, Rainbow Dash scoffed. Instead, he nearly turned Flankfurt into Mecha Sprite munchies. Well, in every harvest, you're going to have a few rotten apples. He'll do better next time, Applejack said with a sigh. Looks like I'm going to have to skip lunch. Gotta head over to Aegis. Yeah, I think it's it. Next and see how they're working on the latest combat armor. Applejack, I haven't seen you in weeks. You promised. Rainbow Dash said irritably. I know, but this is important to me. This is important too. My brother signed up, and if he's fighting, I want something protecting him other than his thick skull. You got a good point there, AJ. Alright. You and me then, Twilight. Rainbow Dash said brightly, then frowned and looked at the purple mare. Twilight? Equestrian Egghead, come in, Egghead. She immediately started. I actually can't. I have, a meeting. Rainbow Dash hung her head. Yay, I'm yelling! Hung her head with a groan, muttering, worst day ever. My host turned down a side hall, and went up some stairs to a window overlooking the demonstration floor. Mr. Horse and a number of research mares were gathering the mecha sprites into baskets. Then my host took off her saddlebags and pulled out a small arcane device. It worked, she said softly, passing it to an open door. A hoof took the device and slipped it inside. A moment later, a heavy bag of bits was tossed out at her hooves. Thank you. My host snickered happily as she stroked her hooves through the gold coins. I could do more. I have access. I could completely screw his research, my host said as she tucked her bits into her saddlebag. That won't be necessary. We only want to discredit, not disrupt, the hidden mayor said softly. My host frowned sharply at the cracked door. Well, you might want to keep me around and handy. And if the air... Oh, crap, this is not good. The air filled with a tense pause. And if I don't? My host smirked. I might feel chatty. I see. I then felt something tickle her ear. She looked over and saw the silenced barrel of a pistol floating beside her head. I'd rather Mr. Horse waste his time with this setback, but an equicide or a suicide investigation would do, Miss Fairhoof, and it would be cheaper. My host's guts immediately loosened as she started to shake. But please, don't play games with us, and we won't play games with you, Miss Fairhoof. Trust me, you won't like our games. The hidden mayor chuckled as the gun disappeared through the door. They're killers. I emerged from the memory with a chill. First, of course, I checked for the inevitable Zebra Ninja assassin or Enclave agents. Damn. It was odd not to worry wicking to find Deus sodomizing me. Oh my. Okay, disturbing image. Please go away. Still, I rose and gave myself a vigorous shake. Everything okay? No pony dead? No, but some pony should be. P21 scowled at the terminal. 12 key password. All to hide the dirty notes the manager was passing to the secretary at Rabonco HQ. Looks like they were arranging a little party of their own in her office. He said with a chuckle. Her password has her password and everything. Was sex always this complicated before the bombs fell? Probably, I said as I lifted the orb. Where'd you find this? P21 snorted and rolled his eyes. Taped to the back of her drawer, actually. Guess she didn't want some point to find it. Was her name Fairhoof? I asked him as I looked around. He found me confusion. The manager? No. He said it was Miss Penny. It was Mary Penny. Why? But I could see why. There was a grainy newspaper clip on the wall behind him. A Bronco retail manager dies to runaway robot. Most of the rest of the article was illegible, but I could at least make out that the manager had been a unicorn mare. You won't like our games. They're killers. Ponies sabotaging other ponies' work? Bribes? Murder? What the hell is going on in this town? A lot of secrets in the hoofs, like a country within a country. My mane was creeping at... Why wasn't my mane creeping at the thought of that? That bitch is gonna fly! I left first. Our sacks were bulging sacks. Our sacks were bulging with nummy looted goods. Nummy. Nummy. What the buck? Well, I was sure that once we converted them to caps, I'd have everything I need to pay for EC1101 decoding. Unfortunately, the pensive look of Rampage doused my excitement, but one look from her pink eyes as she slowly chewed menthols made it clear that pity would be hazardous to my health. P21 and Gloria exchanged a look, but kept their comments to themselves. I chuckled softly to myself, wondering if we were the most dysfunctional band of friends in the wasteland. Probably. So why are we delivering a 200-year-old letter? Gloria asked as we trudged along flooded street. Clammy cold my young Simonana. Simonana. Cinnamon banana. Simonana. No, a banana that plays movies. A Simonana. Gloria asks as we trudged along a flooded street, clammy cold mud squelching under my hooves as I moved in the lead. My rifle swung slowly back and forth, and the red bars that helmeted the ruins. Blood sprites for the most part, and I didn't waste rifle ammo on them, since I was already running low on ammo for a carbine. I picked them off with that and swapped back to the scope to check for trouble. Another two bribing sprites ahead. A swap out and 5 shots later, the carbine was dry and the street ahead was clear. Wow, getting close, huh? Because the pit book says so. Huh, I replied. Grandly as the clouds overhead threatened more rain. Who knows? Maybe it's a ghoul will be touched that we delivered mail to it and give us a sweet silver bullet so I can vaporize whatever monster sanguine sends next. Or you could vaporize a certain pony who wants to die. That thing will kill anything. Always with the eat our brains. Gloria added with a chuckle. Always with the brains. Honestly, it's not like ghouls could chew through skulls. Rampage said with a scornful snort. Actually, most ghouls favor the softer organs, liver, lungs, entrails. My stomach lurched a little. Yeah, that's more than I needed to know. Glory found in thought and looked at me. Is that true? Why are you asking me? I wondered with a nervous laugh. I'm creeped out enough by raider cannibalism. Don't even make me wonder about ghoul diets. You can ask one when we meet one. I know. She huffed as she fluttered her wings. It's just the scientist in me. I mean, if they're immortal and healed by radiation, why the drive to eat at all? Is it a reflex? Instinctive? Is there an actual need to eat ponies? Is there an actual need to eat, or do ponies simply taste good? Pink and Mia thinks so. So, Ball and Glory is a scientist, B21 asked with a small smile, making her almost tip. I frowned at him, but of course he didn't care. The light gray Pegasus gave a little frown. I don't know, but Glory at least is a curious pony. I smiled at that. More than Glory had been a shy, scared, and blindly loyal Pegasus. Glory was curious, but wary. What would Fallen be like? I hope that she just mask Glory wore. I hope she'd just be the mask Glory wore when she was around the Enclave. So who were we delivering this piece of junk to? Rampage says she punted a half-submerged skull aside. I looked at the faded lettering on the envelope. A Mr. and Mrs. Cake at... I glanced up and my voice trailed away. Sugar Cube Corner. They're going to Ponyville. They're gonna meet a certain pony who got her horn bashed off. It's an hour. I'm going to keep going because there's not too much left. And there were yellow bars. I put a hoof on the front step, and the structure gave a great groan. I clenched my teeth at the thought of being buried alive. Of a young cinema banana. Of being... Sorry, I got a fart in my throat. Of being buried delivering mail to ponies probably long dead. The host would laugh his ass off. Okay, I don't think we should all go inside. Maybe just me and Glory. Sure, some pony has to dig your butts out after it falls on your head, Rampage muttered as she looked at the tottery structure. Slowly, we made our way up the steps and past a mold-spotted poster reading, Official Ministry of Morale Confectionery Center. The sight of Pinkie Pie popping out a cake with that grin on her face made me shiver. The waterlogged floor sagged a little with each step. I looked at, at the walls tilted at crazy angles. Wait, are they in Ponyville? No, I think they're still in Flank. There must be a Sugar Cube corner in Flank too. Oh well. Warlock floor stacking. I looked at the tilted and crazy. I looked at the walls tilted in crazy angles. The splintering paneling showed the soaked, crumbling bones of the building. I kept glancing at my pit buck. The second I said the job was complete, I was out of here. There was a little arrowhead on my EFS, but the note still wasn't clear. Clearly, Sugar Cube Corner wasn't enough. One look at the kitchen was enough to convince me not to go inside. It looked like one of the brick ovens were only things holding half the building. That left the stairs. I put my weight on the leading steps, glad they leaned with the slouch of the building rather than against it. My hooves fought for purchase on the uneven surface as the structure groaned and swayed around me. The door at the top of the stairs again wasn't flimsy wood, but rusting steel, covered by a splintering wood veneer. Stepping onto the second floor, I noticed that wasn't all that was wrong here. Why would a bakery need a room full of rusted terminals and monitors? A large chalkboard slumped against the leaning wall. One of the following three on it were drawn 3 columns: good ponies, bad ponies, and really super naughty, wicked bad ponies. Only the second and third column had names written on it. There were posters up here too, but of a decidedly different bent. Remember, we keep Equestria safe, fun and safe. The poster reads while Pinkie Pie twitches her tail. Only you can prevent trouble, read another. Twitch, 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 twitch. Oh fuck. Ouchie. There were also a lot of bones in here. Now I had a problem. Left was where my pit buck was telling me to go. Right where were 3 yellow bars. Non-hostiles. Well, if I didn't have to bother whoever was that way, then best not go bother them. Wub 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 wub. Wub 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 wub. I walked to the left towards an actual bedroom. 2 skeletons greeted me. One splayed across the terminal, and the other curled up in the corner of the room. I looked at my pit buck. This was definitely the place. So, are we done here? Glory asked. No, I sighed, and remembered what I had done with Octavia. Slowly, I tore open the paper and withdrew a letter inside. Hey! A great pink head screamed in glee. I fell to my room as I dropped the paper, and the tiny pink talisman in the middle of the page shot glitter and streamers all over me. A deep groan rolled through the building, and a huge ghostly head of Pinkie Pie flickered down at me. Hi, Mr. Cake. Hi, Mrs. Cake. I wanted to try out this new super terrific invitation spell and thought it'd be just perfect for you. She gave a sympathetic little frown. I know you two aren't happy being away from Ponyville, but you're the only 2 good ponies who are so good and terrific that you never turn your back on me, or say I have a problem, or call me what she called me. The smile was now rictus, rictus spiridium. Her cheeks twitching as she stared at me. It was scary how friendly the smile seemed to melt off her face. Her curly mane slowly straightening before my eyes as she quivered. You two have always been the nicest ponies I've ever known. You're like my mom and dad. She said as her head started to shake and she gave a hiccup. I think there's something wrong. Very, very wrong. Super terrible bad wrong. and I have to stop it. I'm the only one who can. Then, then maybe we can have a real party in Ponyville like we used to. She suddenly stiffened. First, we have to find those bad ponies in Huffington. I know Quartz is a no good, terrible bad pony, and those 4-star ponies too. But I think there are others. I think, I think the ponies in my hub are bad. They're bad. I think they know what the bad ponies are up to. It's all secrets and lies in that place. No pony is who they say they are. No pony is. Except you two, right? Right? Right. So, please, find something. Anything. Please. Hooves covered her face. You're the only ones I can give a piece of myself to. You're my real parents. Please. Mom. Dad. Help me. With that, the tiny engraved sliver of rose quartz snapped in two, and the glowing, ghostly head disappeared, leaving us covered in magical pink glitter and streamers. Pinkie Pie needing help? I thought she was supposed to be helping be the happy one. I thought she was supposed to be the happy one. Yet that was almost begging. Terminals? Lists of ponies? I thought the Ministry of Morale was supposed to be about fun. How in the wasteland has she gone from funtime Pinkie Pie to that? Can we go now? Gloria asked softly as the building groaned around us. There were faint popping noises in the floor. Please, Blackjack. Gloria asked as she backed out the door. Wait. I remember as I looked to the skeleton. What skeleton? Where? In the corner. Slowly I crawled closer. I could feel the floor quivering under my hooves. There. A flash of pink under the bones. Gently I reached out with my magic and tugged the tiny pink figurine free. Slowly I pulled it close and turned it with my magic. My eyes widening as I stared at the tiny plaque. Awareness. It was under E. It read. I looked at her mischievous grin, her bright and shining eyes, not that desperate and sobbing pony I'd seen just a minute earlier. Why were the walls around the cakes filled with bullet holes? I could see them as clear as day through the layer of filth and peeling candy cane wallpaper. The holes were evenly spaced, and automatic sweeping from left to right. This was a murder. Another 200-year-old murder. Fuck. No pony messes with the cakes. No pony. I want to kill him. I want the machine to kill him. But I can't. I'm in the wrong freaking universe, too. Ugh. Oh well. Oh well. My mane crawled on my neck as I remembered the ponies in the museum, and then I spotted the writing on the wall. The sort of thing you might try to write as you bled out while cradling the statue of your surrogate daughter. Project Eternity. Then my senses picked up something else. Clouds through gaps in the roof as Glory screaming as the room slowly peeled away from the rest of the structure. I gripped the statuette in my mouth and scrabbled for the door as the rotten carpet sloughed away under hoof. A rotting turret leaned out over me leaning out over me was starting to collapse as well. Then hooves wrapped around me and Glory as Glory leapt through the door and squeezed me tightly as she flapped her wings for all she was worth. We went out over the broken side of the building as the turret crashed down. The wind nearly knocked me from my hooves as it passed. Glory, you're flying! I cheered and then looked back. Glory, we need to go back. There's three more in there and it's about to come down. Indeed, the entire building seemed to be disintegrating before my eyes. In a minute or two, it would be pancake flat. She looked and then nodded, swinging me through the air back towards the second floor hall. I ran smack into Buck scrambling for the stairs. Then I noticed something unusual. It was under E. For one, he was mostly clean. 2, he smelled of semen and musk. 3, there was blood on his rear legs. 4th, I saw the tiny bow tie on its gray flanks. What are you doing here? I asked, as ignoring the shaking building as Joyce popped and creaked. Run! It's collapsing! He shouted. He hadn't tried to run until I'd fallen out. My eyes narrowed. What the fuck are you doing here? He stared into my eyes, and then looked over his shoulder at the back room. I grabbed his ear in my teeth, and with a pull threw him over my shoulders, and tossed him out over the ledge. Unfortunately, I was aiming beyond the wreckage, and he landed, thrashing and sputtering, uh, uh, the muck having broken his fall. P-21, set on him! Rampage, prop this building up! I turned and rushed towards the room with the other two non-hostiles. I could hear the bricks of the stove below collapsing. Inside was a number of metal bed frames, and a unicorn and a filly who were bound to one with a particularly bloody mattress. The filly was just tied with rope, but the mare had been chained and handcuffed and hoof-cuffed. I made one swipe with my dragon claw and freed the filly. Get out of here! I shouted at Glory. Or get her out of here! I shouted at Glory as I looked back at the mare. The lavender unicorn mare with a broken horn. I just gotta survive. I have a kid. A chill ran down my spine as I looked at the tight hoof cuffs locked around her hooves. They were cutting into her hide. Hopelessness bloomed in her eyes. Please take care of Thorn, she shouted. Not happening, I said as I looked at the locks. I have no clue if I could pick them. You're going to get out of here. I focused my horn on the locks. I didn't even have a bobby pin on Hoof. It's his hand, but I said Hoof. Instead, I just forced the lock to turn, my eyes watering. Snap! With that clear, crisp breaking noise, I knew that the lock connecting the chain to the beds wasn't coming off. I glared at the two hoof cuffs. Carefully. My eyes watered as I fought to maintain focus. Snap! Sweet motherfucking Celestia, cut me some slack here! I screamed as I bit down on the chain, wrapped in my fore hoofs, and braced my hind hooves against the metal headboard. It started to pull. Come on! I screamed as I strained, my heart thudding in my chest as if I was riding a high buck. Buck! There was no way where my heart was beating now. Could I take some? Could I take some more? Be strong. I had to be strong. I had to do better. I levitated out the tower of Buck and chewed. The energy surged through my limbs as I screamed and pulled with all my might. My heart beat so loud I couldn't hear the collapsing building around me. That's not good. The chain gave way with a loud ping. I didn't hesitate a second as I shoved my head through the hoof cuffs and lifted her onto my back. Ducking my head, I ran out of the collapsing building. The floor dropped out from under us as I leapt from the doorway to the missing room. A great gust of wind picked us up and shot us into the debris as the building collapsed behind us. We were together in a tangle of limbs, chains, and broken wood. Kinky. Rampage pulled herself from the wreckage, gripping a jagged spar that impaled her torso and pulling it free as if she were removing a splinter. I knew exactly how she felt. My heart beat so hard it felt like there was a spear of wood in my chest. I knew exactly what. Oh yeah, I really wish I could yank it out too. Struggling to breathe, but each pant didn't bring air. Glory flew on my side. You idiot! What'd you take? Buck? Hydra? It was Buck, wasn't it? She cried as she fought to keep my head above the foul water. Your heart's going to explode, you jackass! She shouted and pulled a Menex and jabbed it in me. The pain lessened, and I liked to imagine my heart rate was slowing down too. Is she going to be okay? The unicorn with the broken horn murmured. I was struck by the ironic sight of flowers for her cutie mark. I'd only seen them in pictures. No, she is not, Gloria said firmly. She's going to kill herself at this rate. Because she's not a smart pony. She saved me. Huh. Gloria looked at her broken horn and her eyes widened. You're about slaver. She winced at her foal. She winced and her foal ran to her side. Gloria looked at the young filly and then at the slaver. She, ugh. The Pegasus walked to one side and began stomping plastic candy lawn ornaments. I prefer Deus. At least it was easy to hate him. I am on nearly an hour and a half. Let's get going. She fumed. No offense, but what are we going to do with him? P-21 asked as he nodded down to the buck he sat on. P-21 had shoved an apple grenade in the buck's mouth. I wasn't exactly sure if that was the smartest thing to do, but the buck wasn't trying anything. Slowly I sat up, the medics calming me down enough to catch my breath. What? He's a rapist. Are we going to let him do it again? P-21 asked as he tapped the stem of the apple. Take it out of his mouth, P-21. I felt oddly numb. You're Frisk, right? Makes sense. I asked as P-21 removed the explosive. What the fuck do you think we're doing? Getting even, he muttered as he glared up at me. When she had the guns, she tied me up and was happy to sell me to paradise. And she got her horn smashed for it. Are you saying she tried a second time? He just glared up at me. I could look at the unicorn. I looked at the unicorn as my heart thudded in my chest. I heard a whisper in my ears. So, what's the proper punishment for a rapist? The old pale buck murmured in a voice like shuffling cards. I'm not an executioner, Blackjack, I muttered. Blackjack! Blackjack! P-21 hissed in outrage. How's this fucker from 99? He's different in that I have to pull the trigger, I said firmly. I won't make you or Glory murderers. Oh, come on. Alright. It's not murder, P-21 argued. I looked at him. He's unarmed. He's not Minnie. He's not dying slowly and tragically. This buck is scum, P-21 retorted. Glory just swallowed. I know what he did was wrong, and I don't want him to ever do it again. But killing him isn't the answer. I have a good compromise. Kill the motherfucker! Cut off his nuts, and then his neck for good measure. Make him piss through a hole like a girl. Turn his Audi into an innie. Oh, now it's an innie. Oh, oatmeal. We glanced at Rampage. She cocked her brow and sniggered. What, you want my opinion? She then turned to a foal who watched us all warily. Did he hurt you, sweetie? She asked with a surprisingly gentle smile. The filly returned a scared but slow shake of a head. Rampage shrugged. I'm good either way. So if he hurt the kid, does that mean kill the motherfucker? I looked at the mare then. The mare that I had maimed in my own battle rage. Do you want me to kill him? I asked, hearing those cards shuffle over and over again. I'm not an executioner. I'm not. This is justice. This is what's fair. She met my gaze and gave the tiniest of nods. Out came the hunting rifle. Funny how I couldn't hear my heart anymore. It was as if everything inside me had gone still and quiet. Let him up, I muttered, and with a frown, P-21 agreed. My eyes met Frisk's. You have to look count of 10 to run. P-21 pressed his lips together as the buck scrambled into his hooves. 1, I said softly. Frisk backed away slowly. 2, I commented as I lifted the barrel with my magic. He immediately turned and ran. I gritted my teeth. 3. Are you going to be able to do it, Blackjack? P-21 asked with a scowl. Would I? 4, I intoned, watching him run through the ankle-deep water. With rubble to either side of him. He can only go in one direction. 5. The water sprayed up around him as it leveled the crosshairs on the back of his neck. 6. You can't do this, Blackjack. Please. You're not a murderer, Glory begged. Was I? I'd always been a killer. Was I ready to become an executioner? Killing coolly and deliberately? 7. I thought he'd be further along, but he was slowed by the water and junk hidden under the surface. 8. I saw the crosshairs tremble on the back of his head. Rampage didn't say a word. You bash your skull to paste before you die of thirst. 9. Is this how it begins? 10. Be kind. I clenched my eyes shut and collapsed in the water. Tears running down my face as I fell to my knees, hugging the rifle to keep from losing the weapon in the muck. I let out a sob, and as I bowed my head, I could imagine Pete Tillman's disappointed expression as I fell at him again. I'm sorry, I whispered. Then I looked at the maimed mare. She stared back at me in shock. I couldn't. I wanted to, but I couldn't. I'm sorry. The mare just held her wide-eyed full. Then she said softly, I really don't mind. You didn't kill me either. You were one strange pony, Scalpel said, as I stood in her auto dock, letting the machine probe and restore me through her magic. Most ponies don't bust a horn one day and pay to replace it the next. Rose, the mare I rescued and almost killed, was resting upstairs with Thorn. She'd quit being a slaver, I replied softly. That has to count for something. She lost her gun and her crew. That doesn't mean she quit. Frisk raped her. She deserves something. If it wasn't Frisk, if it wasn't in flank, doesn't matter. She replied and took another drink. It matters. To you, sure. To me, a bit. But to most ponies, it was her own fault getting caught. Hell, most ponies would think it fair payback to a former slaver. She has a foal. Well, that's a first in the wasteland, Scalpel said with a chuckle. You know what your problem is? Brain damage. You think all ponies are good people. You want to help them. That's a problem. It is if you think you can help them all on your own. Don't you help every pony you can? Sure do. But I've narrowed down my can to a bit to what I can manage. I recognize that some ponies can't be helped. Too addicted, too burned out, too eaten up. They'll take every bit of help I can offer and still mess themselves up. Still, I still have to make the rotten call and write them off. And they die. Sure enough, as if I'd shot them in the head. But if I didn't, I'd be just as dead. Whoa. I'm a poet? I didn't know it. So, it's either of them, is that it? They don't have a choice. They don't have a chance without me. She replied with a shrug. I sighed and closed my eyes. I could have killed her, but I didn't want to be an executioner. I wanted to kill him, but I couldn't. Why? She tapped my head. Because you wanted to save them. You want them to be good ponies again. But ponies aren't good or bad. Ponies is ponies. And the sooner you realize that, the easier it'll be. Yeah, but I'm too stupid for easy. Well, I'll say something nice at your funeral. That's gotta be the best promise I've ever heard anyone make. I'll say something nice at your funeral. I get one? Sweet. Will there be cake? She laughed as she deactivated the machine. You're one twigged mare. I'll take that as a good thing. Her expression turned more serious as she adjusted her glasses. Are you looking to take over flank? I don't know. Should I? Not if you believe in good ponies. These ponies aren't? No pony is. Some try, but flank isn't about helping. Here, everyone's looking out for themselves and doing what they have to do. I close my eyes, imagining Bar Pony. I know, I know two that are looking out for others. Well, that's two more than I know, she replied. I smiled and gave a shake before slipping my barding back on. I need to find Caprice. Is she back in her office yet? Ask your friend at the bar, Scalpel replied with a little snicker. You do know who she is, don't you? I keep trying to figure it out, I muttered. Well, I won't ruin the surprise for you. I huffed. And that's and that keeps happening. Yeah. Okay. I went an hour and a half. Yay. Something was wrong. And once again, I couldn't put my hoof on it. Did Scalpel always look so tired? Well, speaking of Caprice, I should probably go tell her that we'll have to finish fortifying this place soon. And if she doesn't like it, then I'm handing it all to that bar pony. Or you. Or some pony. Hell, I can run this place better than she can. Great. Now Scalpel looked worried. Well, I'm sure she'll be glad to hear that. Why don't you get a bite out of the trough first, though? Medic is no substitute for food, she said with her afraid smile. Good idea. See you later. I replied while yawning. Walking out, I noticed something else. These were the same addicts I'd seen before. In fact, they were the same as the first been brought in. I suppose treatment took more than a single day. Look at how many times I'd been back to deal with the damage I'd caused myself. Still, things weren't much better in the trough. For some reason, I was noticing how off things were. The bountiful food wasn't really all that great in amount. They just spread it out more. The fresh produce from society was withered and pale. The apples on top were decent enough, but most of the remainder were soft and overripe. Even 200 years fresh had empty cardboard boxes behind the packages. The only food that actually looked appetizing, I'm sorry to say, was the food from the Enclave shop, and that was closed and locked up. Something was definitely off. I suppose that, having been around Flank for a while, I finally started to notice things. Still, have the security mirrors always followed me around like that? They didn't look like they were after more pointers. Pizza 1 and Rampage had gone to raid Deus's camp after everything not nailed down, while Glory and I returned to Flank. She was now in the exchange, trying to convert our salvage to caps. And me? It was time to see Caprice. I strode into stable 89, my eyes starting to flicker amber as I'd finally sucked up enough radiation to trigger my mutation. I was resolved to see Caprice and get this done. I saw Bar Pony chattering with Scalpel. The former seemed to be waiting for me, and my nethers gave me another option as Scalpel trod further in. I guess even doctors need to scratch that itch from time to time. Hey, I said with an easy grin. She looked good. Tired, tense, worried, but good. Hey yourself, she said as she bumped my rump and passed me a bottle of Sparkle Cola. Heard you had a busy day helping the town. Yeah, something like that. I took a pull off the bottle. It tasted odd. Sweet, but also bitter. It must have been an old bottle. Drugged. You set me a Mickey. Ugh. But I need to seek a price. I have business with her. Her eye twitched to my barding, my guns. Oh, well, she's still out. But how about we go back to my quarters till she gets back? She asked, and only the thought of her offer to keep me of her offer kept me from going through the roof. Sure, I said with a chuckle, groaning as she nuzzled my mane. I had to admit, watching this filly's flank was even more appealing now. It was like a moon, like a beautiful peach moon. Oh fuck. Fuck. She got sipped some moon dust. I had to admit there was something nice about her room. Maybe it was the light. Everything in the room had a whitish silvery glow to it. It was glow. I was glowing. She was glowing. It was like we were making love in the stars. I gave. I just gave such a. I just gave such a wide grin. My cheeks hurt. Okay, I'm ready for another. Unfortunately, I need to check on a few things, and then I'll be back, she said as she slipped from my hooves. I closed my eyes again with a soft groan. Not fair. Don't whine, Blackjack, she told me with a little wink. It makes you sound so virginal. I almost thought that was vaginal for a second. I'm not for saying its technical terms. Yeah. With that, she slipped out the door, and I groaned. I lay on my back, trying to touch that soft, shimmery light. Blackjack, the old buck rasped. Go away. I've orgasmed. I don't need you to talk to crazy. Blackjack, you need to take a fixer. Fixer doesn't fix nothing. That's what Glory said. I returned. I muttered as I looked at the colors. I feel good. Why do we need to fix that? Everything's so ugly. She's pretty. She's nice. She lets me feel good. Please? Maybe, but this isn't. But this isn't real. You need to take a fixer. She has some in her drawer. How do you know that? You know it. He replied simply. I started to cry. Just let me stay here, please. I don't want to go out there where it's horrible. I'm so sick of horrible. I like to be better when I didn't notice how bad things are. That's the price you pay for noticing. Look at Pinkie Pie. Look at what she saw. See how it destroyed her? You can't lie here, Blackjack. Get on your hooves. I slowly rolled out of bed and staggered over to her desk. I lifted the package of Fixer, wincing at the way the red colors of the packaging blend into the silver glow. I pressed the bitter tablet to my tongue and chewed. The glow disappeared, and I gave myself a brisk shake. Everything from the hallway to the bed was a blur. My barding and stuff was nowhere to be seen. Please, I whispered to the memory of a long dead goddesses. Please don't let this be a setup. Her room was decorated with strands of colored lights. Every inch of the room had strange trinkets and knickknacks. It looked like her treasures. A spent magic cartridge, a full hoof booty, a kazoo. They were all teasing me, making me wonder about this mare. I noticed a lot of papers in a wastebasket. I probably wouldn't have paused if I hadn't noticed the writing was fancy and looping, like I'd seen the Princess Celestia write. I floated one out, narrowing my eyes. My dearest peach pie, I'm looking forward to munching your apricot of love. No words can adequately express how full and throbbing my rhubarb is for your delicate flower. I long to nuzzle your sweet grass and look forward to your lips of full celery. Your sweet cherry, Lord Orange. Okay. Then I glanced down. P.S. I'm including a set of 10,000 caps to sway you into my garden of love. 10,000 caps for sex? I couldn't imagine. Ha. Wow. I looked at her desk and the colorful bottles. Not just soda, perfume bottles. And there were full stickers all over her terminal, and glitter, and it was under E. Then I noticed it. A little spot of something drab on the bookshelf. Something plain. It wasn't hidden so much as simply placed beyond layers of junk. That's what all I saw. That's what all this was. No trophies or important mementos, but simply stuff. Stuff to deceive and mislead. A veil. Slowly, I walked to the bookshelf, and my horn carefully moved beside the bottles, and levitated out a picture in a dusty frame. Softly, I swept aside and looked down at the grainy, black and white photograph of a grizzly buck standing over 3 fillies, hugging them all in his hooves. The one on the left with a disdainful look at the other two. I didn't know. The one to the right, grinning gleefully at the old buck, was the bar pony who'd given me all kinds of wonderful feelings minutes ago. But in the middle, Bottle Cap. Ooh, shit. It's gonna dawn on her pretty soon. The door hissed open, right, and then walked in Caprice. Suddenly, I could see her. I could see around her edges, the apprehension underlying her smooth demeanor, the wariness in her eyes, the fear. She was afraid of me. Why? I wasn't her enemy, was I? Yes, I was. You're, you're up, she said, trying to keep her smooth voice. She may have pulled it off before too, but now I heard the strain in her voice. Yeah, I think I took something. I said calmly as I put the picture back and then levitated the package of fixer. So I took something else, I said, frowning. Why did you tell me you were Caprice? I was just playing, she said. She began, sliding into an easily prepared line. My lips pressed together. That was true, but it wasn't the whole truth. Not even most of the truth. Blackjack, please, why don't we continue our fun, I looked at her now. I looked at her, not smiling now. I just stared and watched her slowly unravel. The tense smile, the pleading eyes, the nervous shake, a little po- a little pressure, and they were impossible to hide. No, I think we're done with that, Caprice. Please don't kill me, she whispered as she shook. What? What are you talking about? I looked. I frowned as I looked at her, feeling my mane crawl. Gemini and Taurus. They knew exactly where to find me. And E21. And Deus. You sold me out. I shouted. I shouted at her as my eyes narrowed. You fucked me. Any more ways than one. She started back up the door, but my stare locked her in place. You told the security mayor to step aside, didn't you? You wanted me to come into the stable, made me nice and comfortable, drug me up and hand me over to Deus, and Taurus knew exactly where that bridge was to cut me off. He could have stopped me easily if I hadn't trapped Minnie. I had no choice, she cried out. It was handing you over to Deus or it was handing you over or Deus would level flank and buried us alive inside the stable. This town is everything. It's all I have, she said as she finally backed away. Now you're taking over, just like Ursary did at Paradise and Ballcap at Megamart. You're going to take flank away from me, she yelled as she backed towards the door. I want to protect it. I wanted to protect it. I wanted to protect you. You could have told me. You could have just asked me to go. I wanted to help you. Caprice, not flank, you. I snarled as the white glow of my magic sheathed my horn. It was like back at the mine. It was right I was looking right at a softer, sweeter lancer, a snake. If I didn't kill her now, she'd just bite me again later. A dry shuffling of cards and an expectant silence. But I am not a fucking executioner, I snapped as she backed away through the door into the overmayor's office. I walked over to my saddlebags and pulled her letter from her letter from bottle cap and threw it in her face. There, message delivered. The finers owe me 3 contracts. Pay up. Okay, it's lagging. She looked at the letter. She looked at the letter at her hooves, shaking. Without opening it, she tossed it into the trash and walked to the safe. She pulled out 5 bags marked 1000C and set them on the table. So then set the bag on the bag so you can stack where you're stacking. I just wanted to get the hell out of flank. I'm sorry, she muttered. I just like not being me. Yeah, I muttered, chewing down another bitter tablet. I like not being you too. I'm the security pony. I'm the one who shows up to kill all the fun. Flank was glad to see me go. They had the turrets. The rest was up to them. I wrangled up a few concessions for our hard work. A working wagon, the contents of Octavia's closet, a few recordings from mixers. Those 2 had been the only ones genuinely sad to see me leave. I bet they were. Even Scalpel just looked at me with her tired, burned-out eyes and just given me a shrug. Rose and Thorn would be coming with us to Megamart, or just someplace else, someplace that wasn't here. When Rampage and P21 returned, we simply loaded it all into the cart and left. So, you forgot who Caprice is yet? Reaper asked. Shut up, Rampage, I muttered. Ponies is ponies, Scalpel had said, whether they're good or evil. Maybe that was true. Maybe we were all somewhere on a slope of gray. But I knew there were ponies who struggled every day to stay as high on that slope as they could, and others who just apathetically slid further and further down. Oh, fucking A, we're done. Almost. Just barely almost done. Footnote, level up. Perk added. Action Mare, rank 2. 15 additional AP in Sats. Skill note, Lockpick, level 50. Huge thanks to KCAT for creating and inspiring me to get through this chapter. And then to Hines and Bronode for making it worth reading. And to everyone kind enough to give me feedback on it. Yeah. That was the yawning author. So, yeah. After a collective 3.5 hours, it's done. Chapter 17 of Project Horizons is done. Buck this shit. It's 1 in the morning. I'm gonna save it, convert it, put it on a freaking video, and slap it on YouTube. 'Cause that's what I do. Good night, ponies. And griffins and everything else. Even the odd changeling. Nightlife out. P.S. I love you all.